You've always approached things really with Alice is like this other person.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and you become that person.
I speak for Alice. Yeah, you know, I mean, Alice never even says thank you to the audience, because if he did, he'd become human like them. And the audience doesn't want Alice to be human. They want him to be Captain Hook. You know, they want him to be Hannibal Lecter. They want him to be this other than human character up there. And when he goes up there and goes, gee, here's a song we wrote in 19. That's not Alice. Alice is a dominatrix up there. He's kind of like in charge of everything. So I when I invented that Alice, I always said, well, he can't talk to the audience because we don't want to humanize him at all. You know.
So why did you decide to invent him, and where did you draw influences from to create this character?
When I first put Alice together, it was a matter, I think, of necessity and a very artistic approach to it, on the level that, to me, art should upset everything. I loved Salvador Dali's stuff, and I loved the fact that it went against everything else. It was like disturbing sometimes, you know, because it was like a bad nightmare. It was beautiful, and it was fun to watch, but parts of it were like, what is that? What is that? You know, that's just not. And I said, well, why couldn't a rock star be like that? Why couldn't a rock star be disturbing like that? And there are no villains. I looked around and I went, there's all heroes in rock and roll. There's no definable villain. When the guy walks in the room, I wanted Alice to be, when Alice walked into the room, everybody would look up and take a step backwards. He wouldn't be the kind of person you went towards. He'd walk in and you'd kind of go, okay. You know, and just let him make the first move. That's what Alice should be. And for years and years and years, that's what Alice was, you know.
And how's he changed then?
Well, I think that now, you know, when you're in the business long enough, like Ozzy and myself, and you get woven into the fabric of rock and roll, whereas what used to be shocking isn't shocking anymore. Even Marilyn Manson and I agree on that. We don't agree on much, but that's one thing we agree on, is that you can't shock an audience anymore. You can entertain the audience, but shock rock went out the window when CNN came out, because you could see more shocking things for reality than you could in, you know, in our fantasies. We would do all these fantastic things in the 70s, and Mary Whitehouse would go crazy, and Leo Absey would get me banned and everything like this, purely on urban legend, purely on this tidal wave of legend that was coming over. Whereas now, I mean, you know, I'd get my head cut off, and this is good. Our kids can't see this, you know. Now you turn on CNN, and there's a guy really getting his head cut off. So how shocking could my show be now? How shocking could Marilyn Manson's show be when that reality is stronger than what we do? You know, yeah, we could cut our arms off. We could only do it twice. But, you know, it'd be very, very hard to shock an audience. You can't shock them with language.
So in a way now, maybe there's perhaps a more tongue-in-cheek approach to it.
Well, I've always had it. Alice has always had a certain amount of Bela Lugosi and a certain amount of Clouseau. You know, in other words, he'll slit your throat, but he'll slip on a banana peel too. You know, so I always like to have a certain amount. You have to play horror against something. You can't just have horror for horror's sake. You have to play horror. If you notice, most good movies are horror stories against a love story, or horror stories against comedy. Almost every Jason, Michael Myers, you know, Freddy Krueger. If you really watch those movies, you're laughing through a lot of it. You know, I don't know if it's nervous laughter, but it's so over the top that it's funny. You know, I always thought there was a certain absurdity to what I did that was so over the top that you had to laugh. If you're not laughing now, Alice, you're staking a vampire baby, you know, and it's pretty gruesome, but I mean, when you think about it, you go, okay, so the baby's a vampire? You know, who can you trust on this stage if the baby's a vampire? You know,
maybe because there is so much darkness in the world. You talk about seeing all these horrific things on TV. Maybe Alice should just flip.
Yeah,
and work for the light now.
Go totally the other way. I should be a Jedi now, huh?
Yeah.
I don't think so. No, there's too many Jedis out there. There's got to be somebody on the Sith side.
So this big tour coming up in the autumn with Motorhead and Joan Jett. You're promising no mercy on this tour. So what do we brace ourselves for?
Well, look who you've got. I mean, you've got Joan Jett, who's great. You've got, Motorhead, who's just, a freight train, And then the Alice show, it's 27 or 28 songs, 26 of which are hard rock, and 2 ballads, I think, in the whole show. Everything else is full bore. I mean, 8, 9 songs in a row right up front that are just shotgun. Bang, 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 bang. Don't even give the audience a chance to get their breath. Then the theatrics start. Even though this actually has a pretty amazing opening. Before anything happens, Alice kills somebody right in front of the audience, right in a shadow effect. I mean, it's the very first thing he does. He gets caught. The curtain comes down, and he's standing there. I won't tell you who he kills because that's a bit of a surprise too. But it starts from there.
Guess. Well, would one of the ballads be Perfect?
Perfect was my tribute to Paul McCartney. That was my Lennon-McCartney song. That song just doesn't have the edge to be in the show, but it's one of my favorite songs. When I got done with that, I said, I've written a Beatles song. Yes! Everybody tries to write one Beatles song in their life, and I think Perfect was the closest one I ever had. So, yeah, very proud of that song.
Alice Cooper and Perfect from the Dirty Diamonds album. Alice Cooper on tour in November. And also, if we can talk just for a moment about your golf book. Because, I used to read things in Rolling Stone and things, Alice Cooper was at, what's the name, Springs? Playing golf with Palm Springs. I said, playing golf with Gerald Ford. I thought, that's not very Alice. What's going on here?
Well, remember, there's 2 Alices. The Alice on stage hates golf. Just hates golf with a passion. If you put clubs on his stage, he would think they were weapons. He doesn't even know what golf is. But he would look at those and go, ooh, that's good. That would work. I, on the other hand, divorced myself from that character a long time ago so I could live my life. I have a wife and kids. I go to the movies, coach Little League baseball. I do all the stuff a dad does. The strange thing is, what does your dad do for a living? Oh, he's that. And there's a picture of me with I love the fact that I get to play Alice. I get the fact where I get to put the makeup on and assume the character of Alice at night. Probably the same way Anthony Hopkins gets to play Hannibal Lecter. During the day, he's a beach bum. He hangs around Malibu, he's like so opposite of that character that you couldn't believe it. So I really look forward to playing Alice. I wouldn't want to have to be Alice all the time. It would be too intense. So the less I'm like him, the more intense he gets on stage, I think. The further gap I put between the two.
That's the secret of your survival, would you
I think
say?
so, yeah. Because, I don't see how you could ever be your character. That's what killed Jim Morrison. That's what killed Jimi Hendrix. That's what killed Janis Joplin. They felt that they had to be that bigger-than-life character all the time. How do you fortify that? You drink, or you take drugs, or you have to do something, because it's so abnormal to try to do that. You really can't coexist with your stage. If your stage character is as good as it should be, he shouldn't ever live off stage. He'd feel totally uncomfortable in this world.
It's very different to the way kind of rock stars, to use the term, are now. Pete Doherty is this famous one at the moment who's never out of the newspapers, who's trying to live the rock star thing.
But, I hate to say this, but we'll all be reading about him in the obituaries. And I hate to say it about anybody, but where else can that go? You only get away with that. You can blindfold yourself and walk across a freeway and not get hit by a truck. A couple times. Eventually, you're going to get hit by the truck. Eventually, there's going to be just a little bit too much heroin in the shot. There's going to be a little bit, maybe too much, from the last one to this one to that one. Your body finally gives you a thing. It's over.
But it's because the public seem to demand, reality. They don't want, the rock star mustn't become this person on stage. They've got, their person has got to be like this.
I think that was like that for a while, and people were maybe disappointed that Alice didn't live in a big black castle